Cherry debuts on Apple TV March 2021. Is it any good? Let me tell you, coming up next. Cherry is directed by Anthony and Joe Russo, starring Tom Holland as a veteran of the Iraq War in the early 2000s, coming back to America and trying to reestablish his life there. The movie is told in, I say, 5 or 6 chapters. It actually uses part 1, part 2, part 3, and showing you how he met his girlfriend, soon-to-be wife, goes off to the Iraq War, comes back home, has PTSD, is a heroin addict. She becomes a heroin addict, and he ends up robbing banks in order to get money to fund their addiction. This movie comes from a novel named Cherry, which is widely acclaimed, and it feels like a filmed novel to me rather than a film itself. The movie has a lot of stylistic flourishes. In fact, it owes a great debt to Martin Scorsese. David O. Russell has flavors of him, especially with its use of pop music. A little bit of Wes Anderson. There's a lot of stylistic flourishes in this movie, and they're at odds with the simple, really basic, even cliched story this movie wants to tell. At times, I like them, but at other times, they're very off-putting. Whether you have black and white flashbacks, quick cuts to other visions or flashbacks. You've got different aspect ratios, different lenses, all kinds of lenses used here, some tinting, words put actually on the screen that the characters are saying, and breaking the fourth wall. Quite often in this, looks like Ferris Bueller, but it's quite, I thought, off-putting in this as Tom Holland speaks to the camera. This is supposed to be a first-person narrative after all. And a lot of the bank signs in particular aren't really bank signs of the ways the character would see the bank. Nevertheless, with a lot of voiceover here, it's just too much first-person-y to me, I thought. And for that reason, I think it's going to make a lot of people upset. The style being, I think, at odds with the very harrowing and really disturbing story this movie wants to tell. In fact, the voiceover, it's the same complaint people have had for decades with voiceover. It's just too much. You can do so much with visuals, you don't even need a voiceover narrator. You get scenes where the character punches a mirror, breaks it, and then the voiceover narrator will say, "I punched a mirror." Right? Why do we need a voiceover to tell us what we can actually see? You get a lot of that in this movie, and I think it's just too overwritten at times. At the same time it's overwritten, the characters, I mean, they all sort of speak the same, and they all sort of loosely use the F word in whatever ways they want. Now, of course, we're depicting the military, the U.S. military in this, and drug addicts, so no problem with language that they might use, but there's really no art to this movie as far as the language goes. And yet there's art to the visual and oral musical style to this movie, which is very strange. You should have just as good a tight and interesting script as you do visuals here, but that's not the case. It really is a big downer of a movie, too. I mean, I find it very difficult to watch. I get a lot out of, say, Darren Aronofsky's Requiem for a Dream, which is a brutal movie to watch. You know, I find there's some art to it, whereas this movie has shades of that, and yet it's just such a downer. You don't want to watch this on Friday night as entertainment, even if you're interested in Tom Holland and him taking his shirt off 4 or 5 times in this movie. It's really not going to uplift anybody, and yet there's an ending here which feels tacked on as an uplifting, I thought, a sentimental, gooey ending that was not needed. I have a lot of reasons to dislike this movie. I wanted to like it because of its style, and I really want the message about veterans and PTSD to be out there, to be known, because the Iraq War was devastating socially to, I think, America in general. And yet, this movie doesn't really do as much work as it could that way and present it, the situation as artistically engaging as I thought it would. So for that reason, I do not recommend this movie. I think some of you are going to like it for various reasons. I think people will be in love with Tom Holland, perhaps. He's cute here, even as a drug addict. But overall, I think a lot of people won't appreciate this movie. It's also overly long at 2 hours and 20 minutes or so. So I will to steer you away from this. 1.5 stars from me. I could see giving it 2.5 stars an average rating, but overall, I just couldn't rewatch this movie if I wanted to. What did you think about Cherry? Am I wrong or am I right? Let us know in the comments, and please subscribe to this channel for more great reviews, content, old movies, new movies. Thanks, and have a great day.